Hello, my sweet stars, and welcome to With a Witch, where we do stuff with me, a witch. Today, we're taking some quiet time to do some research and take some notes in my Book of Shadows. The fact that you clicked on this video is a sign from the algorithm that you should take some time for a moment of magic today and take some notes with me. Find yourself a place where you won't be distracted for the next 20 minutes or so and take a breath. Use it to let go of everything you've been doing and everything you have left to do today. This time is your time. Let go of everything that doesn't concern this moment. If you're not joining me today, maybe take a moment to grab a cup of tea and settle in. But if you are joining me, you'll need your Book of Shadows or whatever notebook you like to take notes with, and a pen. I have here an Arteza roller ball in the size 0.5. I also have a teal Crayola marker and a blue Staedtler fine liner for some accenting, and a candle for the ambiance, and water, because it's always good to hydrate. Now that we're all prepared, let's begin. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Today, I'm taking notes on water witchcraft from the book Water Witchcraft by Anwen Avalon, which, as a whole, I'm not a fan of, but it does have some good information, which I will be picking out today. You can follow along with me, or can do a quick search on the internet and find your own information on water witchcraft or whatever suits your mood. I am happy to be background noise. I'm first going to set up the page in my Book of Shadows. I like to leave 2 borders on the majority of my pages, a slim border on the side to add asterisks to anything that I'd like to look at more in detail later, either because it interests me or because I don't quite understand it based on the source material and I'd like more information. And then I have a border at the bottom, which I hold in case I need to add extra notes, comments, or information later on. Plus the date, a title to remember what I'm doing, and a page number. Avalon speaks a lot about folklore, largely Celtic folklore, and both about specific folk tales and about folk practices. Many of them I find unfortunately inaccessible, largely because there are rather fewer wells and intersections of 3 rivers and such nearby to me, less than an hour from New York City, than there were for the people who considered these places sacred and powerful. But some, like the more general belief that water at large was a liminal space, a connection between our world and the other world, or even the underworld, is something both that I can utilize and that I connect with on an instinctual level. This is the sort of information that I'm really looking for from this book. Then again, I can't do much practically with the knowledge that when the Christians came through, they renamed all of the major bodies of water and wells. There are apparently a lot of wells, after female saints because they were originally named after the feminine spirits that were thought to guard or dwell in those waters. But she can't account for my own taste, and not everything interesting has to be practical. Avalon has an interest in finding convincing evidences or proofs of the power of magic from outside sources, which is where her interest in folklore seems to come from. She uses it in many places in the book to corroborate why something is or should be a valid practice. But she also uses what little is available from science, which brought her to Dr. Masaru Emoto. Apologies to anyone who's aware of the extent to which I may have just butchered that. Dr. Emoto essentially observed that if you put water in different circumstances, like if you say things to it or even around it in different tones or with different types of content, that when it freezes, the water will freeze in a different pattern. Unfortunately, the doctoral title didn't seem to lend Emoto any sort of attachment to the scientific method, as controlled testing environments and repetitions and control groups and other such things don't appear to be something he spent time on, which has left his research at best dismissed and at worst actively ridiculed. But the premise is fascinating nonetheless, and I find myself trying to figure out how well I could possibly recreate such an experiment with any sort of scientific rigor. I am extremely interested in attempting it. One thing I don't love about this book among many, if you want a more complete laundry list, check out my reading vlog on it, is that a lot of the exercises or practice suggestions are fairly derivative, which is why, out of several pages of description on what water in its various states of matter could be used for, I only found one that I can't recall hearing from 40 other people on Tumblr or Pinterest or TikTok. Defrosting a piece of ice could be useful as part of a spell for new beginnings, or to get something stuck moving again. This is not something that I doubt exists on Tumblr or Pinterest or TikTok. I just happen to have heard it here first, and so I wrote it down. It does have that sort of vibe though, doesn't it? We're back to folk practices. Throwing a cursed object into a lake at midnight was believed to break the curse. I'm not certain at what point I might have the opportunity to throw something into a lake at midnight, or, frankly, to acquire a cursed object, but it felt like one of those things that could be adapted. So did the belief that water used to wash a sick person could be thrown out of a door or gate, and then the sickness would transfer to the first person who walked through it. I probably wouldn't use it for sickness, but it could be a pretty excellent I'm rubber, you're glue, wash off me and splash on you sort of working. I'm kind of into it. Given my rather city-type suburban surroundings, and after all the talk of wells and springs and tributaries, I appreciated the reminder that man-made waters are as likely to have spirits and entities and energies associated with them as natural ones, that they can be worked with, that relationships can be formed with them. I'm sure Avalon intended to speak to things like dams and canals, that sort of man-made water, but now I'm really very curious about what sort of relationship could be formed with a fountain bird bath, or a pool, or even a sewer. I feel like you'd need hella protection for the last one, but it could be an interesting experience. More water correspondences, these with forms of rain. Sun showers were interesting to me, not necessarily because I couldn't see why there's an association between it and healing magics, but because when I thought about it for a second, that really isn't my association at all. Growing up in the South, a sun shower was always the devil beating his wife. Don't ask me why, but that's what it was. And I don't know about y'all, but that doesn't feel especially like a healing energy to me. Correspondences are very personal, but this one I just had to write down because of how strikingly different it was from my own association. Others I wrote down were water from those multi-day dreary rains being good for shadow work and for rejuvenation, and that river water, which isn't a rainwater, so I don't know why I put it in the same section, but such is my logic. That river water has a crud ton of associations, including some that depend on direction. Avalon recommended it for moving things along, for a vigorous cleansing. If you sit in it with your back to the current and visualize all of your internal and energetic junk just being sent down the river, so to speak. You can attach petitions to twig boats and send those down the river to get rid of something or someone. According to Celtic folk tradition, evil entities can't cross water, so doing so yourself could also help shake that negative energy. Rivers flowing sunward were believed to be good for healing, and flowing south too, and rivers flowing north were thought to be able to take messages to the underworld. My timer is going off, so we'll finish up with a last note for this page, which was just that Avalon speaks about preparation of a ritual space as a form of moving meditation. Though in some ways this is already part of my practice, I haven't thought of it quite in that light, so I made a note that I could consider deliberately thinking of it as such and experiment with how that might change my ritual experience. And that brings us to the end of our magical moment. Let's take a few seconds together to take a deep breath and get ready to step back into daily life. Until next time, I hope you remember that no matter what fills your day, you are always full of magic, and that makes every moment magical. But if you need something a little extra, if you want to take some time to do some work as a witch with a witch, you can always come back here. I'll be waiting.